Have you ever wondered what happens when, like, 4,500-year-old ancient energy practices just completely collide with this ultra-strict, modern, plant-based nutritional protocol?
Oh, it's fascinating because usually, when we talk about healing or nutrition, we are forced into these really neat, tidy little boxes.
Right.
You've got the ancient spiritual healers on one side of the room, and then the clinical lab coat wearing medical doctors on the totally opposite side.
Yeah, exactly. It's this binary choice we've all been sort of conditioned to accept, right?
Yeah.
You are either treating the bioenergetic field or you're treating the hard biological chemistry.
And those two camps, I mean, they rarely speak the same language, let alone actually share a treatment plan.
But then you step into the world of someone who just refuses to choose between the two, and suddenly that whole binary completely falls apart.
It really does.
So today we are taking a deep dive into a landscape of healing that is incredibly layered, really complex, and frankly, a matter of life and death.
Yeah, the stakes here are incredibly high.
Our source material today is this extensive first-hand account from a man named Osman. He's known online as the Blind Muslim Yogi.
And his story is definitely not about trying to drop, 5 pounds for a beach vacation.
No, not at all. Osman is an entrepreneur, a master-level energy healer, and a yoga and meditation teacher who has literally practiced for 50 years.
Wow, 50 years.
Yeah. And there's an important detail we need to establish right up front for you listening. Osman is completely blind, and he states he's been permanently blind since May 2023.
Right, which makes his content really interesting because, as he reminds his viewers, in his videos, he describes things using terms that only a sighted person would use.
Exactly. Because he had normal eyesight right up until 2023. He knows what things look like.
That context is so important.
It is. And through his platform, he's sharing his incredibly intense personal experiment with something called Dr. Brooke GOLDNER's green smoothie protocol. He basically undertook this to survive the physical devastation of his cancer treatments.
But before we even dissect the biological mechanics of what Osman actually did, it is absolutely vital to contextualize his approach here.
Definitely.
He explicitly states that his all-natural therapies, which, by the way, he shares through a free 5-minute yoga and meditation program on his website.
Oh, right. That's at yogawellness786.com, right?
Yes, yogawellness786.com. He's very clear that these practices are complementary.
Meaning they supplement medical treatments.
Exactly. They do not replace them. In fact, Osman is totally adamant that anyone dealing with a serious illness has to be monitored by a board-certified medical doctor.
He's not messing around with that disclaimer.
No, he's not. So we are looking at his story today purely as this remarkable case study, a look at the human body's capacity to heal when it's pushed to its absolute limits.
And man, the limits he was pushed to were extreme. Osman used this green smoothie protocol specifically to boost a massively depleted immune system following his cancer treatments.
Yeah, the aftermath of that is brutal.
If you listening have ever had a family member go through chemotherapy or radiation, you know it doesn't just target the cancer.
No, not at all.
It acts like this scorched earth campaign on the entire body.
And that scorched earth analogy is biologically spot on. I mean, chemotherapy drugs are fundamentally designed to seek out and destroy fast-dividing cells.
Because cancer cells divide rapidly, right?
Right, which makes them prime targets. But the thing is, well, your body has other fast-dividing cells.
Like hair follicles.
Hair follicles, the cells lining your gastrointestinal tract, and crucially, your bone marrow.
Ah, right. The immune system factory.
Exactly. The bone marrow is the factory for your white blood cells. So when chemo suppresses the bone marrow, you enter this state called neutropenia.
Your body's standing army is basically wiped out.
Wiped out completely. So Osman was looking for a nutritional intervention that could act as a profound emergency countermeasure to that immense physical toll.
Enter Dr. Brooke GOLDNER's protocol. Let's talk about Dr. GOLDNER for a second, because she's not just some wellness influencer selling, like, detox teas.
No, she is a board-certified medical doctor and a psychiatrist. She's licensed in multiple states.
And she spent years studying nutrition science to cure her own severe autoimmune condition, lupus, I think it was.
Yeah, lupus. And her protocol is, to put it mildly, it is aggressive.
Aggressive is an understatement. When I was reading the daily requirements in the source material, my jaw literally dropped.
Same here.
It consists of massive, and I mean massive amounts of raw cruciferous vegetables, a half cup of raw flax seeds, water, and then a maximum of 25% fruit.
And that fruit is purely there just to make it palatable enough to swallow, honestly.
Right. Osman specifically mentions using cauliflower, cabbage, broccoli, and spinach, though he notes the spinach was oddly hard to find during his time in Turkey.
Yeah, that was a funny little detail. But to understand why this specific combination of foods works as a biological rescue operation, we really have to look past the label of vegetables.
Okay, so we're looking at the chemistry.
Yes, the molecular chemistry. Cruciferous vegetables, so your broccoli, cabbage, cauliflower, they contain super high concentrations of a compound called glucoraphanin.
Glucoraphanin, got it.
Now, when you chop, or in this case, violently blend these vegetables while they're raw, an enzyme called myrosinase gets activated.
Okay, so blending triggers the enzyme.
Exactly, and that enzyme converts the glucoraphanin into a highly potent molecule called sulforaphane.
Oh, I've heard of sulforaphane.
Yeah.
It's huge in longevity circles.
It is huge.
But how does it actually rescue a depleted immune system? Like, is it just acting as a standard antioxidant, like taking a vitamin C pill?
Oh, it's far more powerful than a standard antioxidant. See, vitamin C neutralizes one single free radical and then it's done. It's depleted.
One and done.
Right. Sulforaphane, on the other hand, activates this specific genetic pathway in your cells called the NRF2 pathway.
NRF2
Okay. When NRF2 is activated, it travels straight into the nucleus of the cell and literally flips the switches on hundreds of protective genes.
Whoa, so it's bossing the DNA around.
Basically, yeah, it commands your own cells to start manufacturing massive amounts of their own internal antioxidants, like glutathione.
That is wild.
So it's not just handing the cell a tiny shield, it's upgrading the cell's entire defense manufacturing plant.
Okay, that makes sense. But crucially, you mentioned you had to consume these vegetables raw.
Yes. If you cook them, the heat destroys that myrosinase enzyme.
And without the enzyme, no sulforaphane.
Exactly.
So that explains the absolute mountain of raw cabbage. But what about the half cup of flax seeds?
Right, the flax.
A half cup of pure seeds blended into a liquid sounds like it would just turn the smoothie into straight up cement.
I mean, it definitely changes the texture to be quite thick, but it is biochemically non-negotiable for cell repair here.
Why?
Flax seeds are one of the most dense plant sources of alpha-linolenic acid, or ALA. That's a type of omega-3 fatty acid.
Okay, so healthy fats.
Right. And remember, every single cell in your body is encased in a lipid bilayer, a membrane made of fats.
So when your body has been subjected to the oxidative stress of cancer and chemotherapy.
Those cellular membranes are physically damaged. They are torn up.
Oh, I see.
By flooding the system with high-quality anti-inflammatory omega-3 fats, you are providing the exact raw architectural materials the body needs to rebuild those damaged cell walls.
Okay, if you're listening to this and thinking, there is absolutely no way I could drink almost 2 liters of raw cabbage and flaxseed sludge every day.
Yeah.
I am right there with you.
It sounds like an absolute chore.
It really does.
Yeah.
But it's hypernourishment. It's like, imagine a city where a hurricane has just wiped out all the emergency responders and destroyed the infrastructure.
That's chemo.
Right. Dr. Goldner's protocol is like airdropping raw building materials and millions of new construction workers directly into the bloodstream.
That's a great analogy.
But this brings up a logistical hurdle that Osman ran into. The water requirement.
Oh, the water aspect is a major functional pillar of this.
You need it to process all that fiber, right?
Yeah. Yes, you need water to process that immense volume of soluble and insoluble fiber and to help the kidneys actually filter out the cellular waste generated by this massive repair process.
Right. But here is where Osman's story gets highly entertaining. And honestly, a little biologically terrifying.
Oh yeah, the Petrick mix-up.
Yes. So Dr. Goldner's minimum recommendation is roughly 2.8 liters of water a day. But she gives her recommendations in U.S. fluid ounces.
Right, because she's in the U.S.
But Osman is originally from South Africa. So his brain operates entirely in the metric system.
Naturally.
He tries to convert U.S. ounces to liters in his head, miscalculates wildly, and ends up consuming 5 liters of water a day.
5 liters. I mean, that is pushing the boundary of water intoxication.
Wait, really? You can drink too much water?
Oh, absolutely. It's called hyponatremia. It's where you risk diluting the essential sodium in your blood to dangerous levels.
Man, it's basically a full-time job just drinking water at that point.
You'd just be living in the bathroom.
I was reading that and thinking, how did his stomach not just burst? But he stuck to it. He committed to this grueling routine for 90 straight days.
90 days.
No other foods, no cooked meals, just the raw green smoothie, the massive amounts of water, and absolute monk-like adherence.
And that level of uncompromising adherence is precisely why he achieved the biological response he did.
Because he gave it zero breaks.
Exactly. When you remove all systemic dietary triggers, zero refined sugars, zero processed seed oils, zero complex cooked proteins, and you replace them purely with this anti-inflammatory slurry, you are completely redirecting the body's metabolic resources.
Meaning what, exactly?
Well, digestion is incredibly energy intensive.
Okay.
By providing the nutrients in an already broken down, blended, hyper-bioavailable liquid format, the body doesn't have to expend massive amounts of energy breaking down heavy meals.
So it takes all that saved energy and does what?
It diverts all of that conserved energy toward profound tissue healing.
And the healing he experienced was staggering. Let's look at the actual physical transformations, because this is where the airdrop supplies really took effect.
Yeah, the results are wild.
Osman had been suffering from long-term neuropathy. For you listening, neuropathy is severe nerve damage.
It's incredibly painful.
Yeah, it usually causes agonizing, tingling, numbness, or this burning weakness in the extremities. And it's notoriously difficult for modern medicine to treat beyond just prescribing painkillers to, mask the symptoms.
Right, the typical gabapentin route.
Exactly. Now, Dr. Goldner's protocol promises major illness reversals in 28 days, or sometimes they do a 6-week protocol. But Osman goes the full 90 days.
Just powering through.
And the result, a 99% reversal of his long-term neuropathy.
A 99% reversal of nerve damage in 3 months. I mean, that challenges a lot of assumptions in standard neurology.
Right.
Because nerves are generally considered some of the slowest healing tissues in the human body.
I was actually going to push back on this when I read it. If I have nerve damage from chemotherapy, the physical wire of the nerve is degraded, right?
Yes, the myelin sheath is stripped.
So how on earth does drinking blended broccoli fix a physical wire?
It's a really great question, and it actually comes down to microvasculature.
Tiny blood vessels.
Exactly. Nerves don't just exist in a vacuum. They have to be fed by incredibly tiny microscopic blood vessels.
Okay.
When the body is in a state of chronic systemic inflammation, whether that's from modern diets, oxidative stress, or the heavy aftermath of chemotherapy, those tiny blood vessels become inflamed.
And they swell up.
Right, they swell and essentially choke off the blood supply to the nerves. So the nerve isn't just damaged, it is actively suffocating.
Wow.
Furthermore, the specialized cells responsible for repairing that myelin sheath, they're called Schwann cells.
Schwann cells, okay.
They cannot operate in a highly inflammatory environment.
So the nerves are essentially trapped in a burning building, and the firefighters can't even get inside.
That is exactly what is happening. By utilizing this hyper-strict protocol, Osman turned off the inflammatory tap completely.
No more fire.
Right. The inflammation in those microscopic blood vessels subsided, blood flow returned to the nerve endings, and the Schwann cells, now fueled by that massive influx of omega-3 fatty acids from the flax seeds, could finally get to work rebuilding the myelin sheath.
That makes total sense.
What?
We're putting out the fires so the repair crews can work.
Exactly.
But alongside the neuropathy healing, Osman experienced this massive paradoxical weight loss, and specifically the loss of stubborn visceral fat.
The belly fat.
Yeah, he talks about his belly fat and love handles.
Yeah.
He said he had previously tried super strict calorie-restricted diets with perfectly portioned meals.
The standard gym bro diet.
Totally. He was spending 2 hours a day in the gym doing intense cardio and heavy strength training.
Yeah.
He got to the point where a six-pack was literally starting to form.
Wow.
But that thick, stubborn layer of abdominal fat around his organs was still there. He could literally feel it. Yet on the 90-day smoothie protocol, without those 2 hours of grueling daily gym sessions, that fat just melted away.
See, this is a phenomenal illustration of the difference between subcutaneous fat and visceral fat.
Okay, break that down for us.
It forces us to look past the really outdated calories in, calories out model of weight loss.
I want to make sure I'm understanding this correctly. If I'm doing 2 hours of cardio, I'm burning subcutaneous fat, right? Stuff I can pinch right under my skin.
Yes, mostly.
But my visceral fat, the fat wrapping around my liver and intestines deep inside, is basically just ignoring the treadmill because it's driven by something else.
You've hit the nail on the head. Subcutaneous fat is relatively benign metabolically. It's basically just passive stored energy.
Okay.
Visceral fat, however, is a completely different beast. It acts less like stored energy and more like a rogue endocrine organ.
A rogue organ. That sounds terrible.
It is. Visceral fat actively secretes inflammatory chemicals called cytokines, specifically things like interleukin-6 and TNF-alpha directly into your bloodstream.
Whoa, so it's just pumping out inflammation.
Exactly. It actively promotes systemic inflammation and drives insulin resistance.
So visceral fat is literally a toxic factory inside the belly.
Precisely. And here is the feedback loop that traps people. High insulin levels signal the body to lock fat inside those visceral fat cells.
Lock it in.
Yes, even if you are starving yourself on a calorie-restricted diet, if the foods you are eating are causing chronic spikes in insulin, that visceral fat will not budge.
Oh, because the door is locked.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, look at the raw green smoothie protocol. It completely flattens insulin spikes.
Because there's no sugar.
Right. Because there are no refined carbohydrates or processed sugars, insulin drops to a really healthy baseline.
It cuts the supply lines to the toxic factory.
Yes. The body realizes it is no longer in a state of inflammatory emergency. The insulin lock on those visceral adipocytes is removed, and the body finally feels safe enough to release and burn off that dangerous, illness-contributing fat.
So Osman wasn't just losing weight, he was healing a deep metabolic dysfunction. It totally proves that you cannot out-train a diet that your specific biology is reacting to. I mean, he had the discipline of a professional athlete, but it was the raw cabbage and flax seeds that finally unlocked the stubborn belly fat.
It's all about the information.
So at this point in his journey, he's achieved a 99% neuropathy reversal. The visceral fat is gone. He feels amazing. It sounds like he's completely cured, right?
You'd think so.
He thought so too, which is why his decision to eat a single plate of fast food delivery is just so devastating to read about.
It really is the ultimate testament to the fragility of a healing body. We start to feel better, so we test the boundaries.
He was smart about it initially, though. He started with a safe vegan bowl.
Right.
It had raw salads, a tiny handful of brown rice, and hummus. Now, he notes that he made sure the hummus was strictly chickpeas blended with water to get natural omega-6s, entirely avoiding processed oils.
Very cautious.
He did this once a week. The result? No negative impact. His nerve pain stayed away.
Which tells us his body had built up a small degree of resilience. A minor deviation, kept very clean and strictly whole food-based, was tolerated.
But then, real life happened. He had to travel across countries.
Oh, travel is the hardest part.
If you've ever been stuck in an airport terminal, you know that finding a Whole Foods raw vegan meal is virtually impossible.
Good luck.
He specifically mentions being offered an airline breakfast of a blueberry apple crumble.
Oh, loaded with refined carbohydrates and sugar.
Yeah. And then when he finally arrived at his destination, staying in someone else's home, the environmental friction just became way too high. He couldn't prep his massive 1.8-liter green smoothies.
Right, because the modern food matrix is explicitly designed for convenience and shelf life, not cellular health.
Totally.
When you are removed from your controlled environment, compliance becomes exponentially harder.
So he had to rely on ordering food online. He tried to stick to a vegetarian keto profile, but he ended up relying on fast food vegetarian delivery. And this shift completely wiped out his progress. He states that over 90% of his neuropathy healing was lost.
Just from that.
The burning, the nerve issues, the pain, it all came rushing back from just a short period of eating delivery food. How is that possible?
It's scary.
If the nerve was repaired, how does a vegetarian burger instantly destroy the wire again?
So to understand this rapid relapse, we have to look at epigenetic memory and immunological priming.
Epigenetic memory.
Yeah. When Osman achieved that 99% reversal, the protocol had successfully suppressed the active disease mechanism. The localized inflammation was gone, so the symptoms vanished.
Right.
But the underlying cellular memory, the biological pathways that created the neuropathy in the first place, were still primed. They were dormant, not dead.
It's like a dry forest that hasn't seen rain in months. There's no fire right now, but it's ready to ignite.
That is exactly it. Fast food, even vegetarian fast food, is universally cooked in industrial seed oils.
Like soybean oil, canola oil.
Soybean oil, canola oil, sunflower oil. These oils are incredibly high in linoleic acid, which is highly susceptible to oxidation.
Meaning what?
When you heat them, they degrade into toxic byproducts. So when Osman consumed that fast food delivery, he flooded his system with oxidized lipids and refined carbohydrates.
Throwing a match onto the dry forest.
Exactly. It triggers an immediate, aggressive arachidonic acid cascade. The inflammatory pathways flared right back up, the microvessels constricted, and the nerves began suffocating again almost instantly.
Wow. Which brings us to the hard, brutal truth of Dr. Goldner's protocol.
The time commitment.
Yeah. To truly heal, not just suppress symptoms, but truly cure the condition. She insists that patients must stay on the Pure protocol for at least 2 years after complete symptom reversal.
Yeah.
2 full years with 0 markers of illness before you can even introduce a cooked, steamed vegetable.
And this 2-year rule isn't just arbitrary. It is tied to the biological reality of cellular turnover.
Break that down. What is cellular turnover?
Well, every tissue in your body replaces itself at a different rate through processes called apoptosis, which is programmed cell death and cellular regeneration.
Okay.
Your red blood cells turn over every 120 days. The lining of your stomach turns over every few days.
Fast.
Right. But deeper tissues, lipid structures, and specifically the immune system's memory cells, they take much longer.
I see.
Dr. Goldner found that it takes roughly 2 years of an absolutely pristine, zero inflammation environment for the entire body to undergo a total cellular reset, effectively overwriting those dormant disease pathways.
I want to ask you, the listener, to really think about your life right now. Just put yourself in Osman's shoes for a second. Could you do this?
It's a huge ask.
Imagine sitting at a table with your family. They are eating pizza or steak or double-thick milkshake. You're at a birthday party. Everyone is having cake. And you have to pull out a massive jug of raw cabbage and broccoli liquid.
And you have to do that every single day.
For 2.5 years.
The psychological and social friction of that level of dietary compliance is immense. I mean, food is not just macronutrients for us.
No, it's culture.
It is culture, it is connection, it is the center of our social rituals. To step entirely outside of normal human eating habits requires a level of mental fortitude that borders on the ascetic. You are voluntarily isolating yourself in social settings.
Osman actually explicitly talks about this mental battle. He says it's very difficult and tempting if you live with family members eating normal foods. You have to cultivate a rock-solid, uncompromising mindset.
You really do.
He even offers a strategy for this. He says, don't look at the 2-year period as this daunting, insurmountable mountain.
Right.
Discount the time.
Yeah.
Don't focus on when it finishes. Just count the daily progress. It's a very meditative approach.
Which is incredibly fitting, given his background. He is focusing on the present action, the daily habit of the smoothie, rather than allowing his mind to be crushed by the scale of the end goal.
And speaking of his meditative background, despite this massive setback with his neuropathy, Osman found a deeply unique spiritual motivation to return to the protocol.
Oh, this part is fascinating.
Because during those initial 90 days before the fast food relapse, something else happened to his body that shocked him. Something entirely outside the realm of nerve pain or belly fat.
Yes, an effect that perfectly bridges his physical biology with his decades of energetic practice.
Remember, Osman is an advanced yoga and meditation teacher. The source material highlights he has practiced for 50 years and achieved his first samadhi experience by age 19.
19, that's wow.
Right. During the strict smoothie protocol, he experienced a rapid, undeniable surge in what he calls his life force energy. He found that his physical flexibility and his yoga postures returned to peak levels that he had not experienced since he was a teenager.
Before we unpack the physical side of that, for listeners who might not be familiar with esoteric yogic terminology, it's probably helpful to define samadhi. It is often described mystically, but from a neurophysiological standpoint, samadhi is a state of profound meditative absorption.
Okay, so total focus.
Right. But it represents a state where the nervous system shifts into absolute parasympathetic dominance, the ultimate rest and digest state, where brainwave patterns slow dramatically, and the subjective sense of self dissolves into a feeling of deep unity.
Attaining that at 19 requires extraordinary neurological discipline.
Unbelievable discipline, yes.
So he intimately knows the limits and capabilities of his nervous system. Now, according to the ancient yoga philosophy he practices, physical flexibility is directly proportionate to the amount of life force energy, or prana, moving through the human body.
Prana.
He notes that he had been actively working on increasing the strength of his life force energy for about 5 or 6 years prior to starting the protocol. But it was incredibly slow going.
Even on a clean diet.
Exactly. He was already on a pure, planned, whole foods vegan diet during that time, but he never found that massive surge. It was only when he started Dr. Brooke GOLDNER's raw, cruciferous protocol that this massive surge unlocked.
That's the kicker.
He was suddenly able to perform advanced postures with the ease of a teenager. How does Western medical science look at a concept like life force energy driving flexibility?
We can actually build a really fascinating bridge here between Eastern bioenergetic concepts and Western biomechanics by looking at fascia.
Fascia. I've heard athletes talk about that.
Yes. Fascia is the continuous web of connective tissue that wraps every muscle, bone, nerve, and organ in your body. It is heavily reliant on a substance called hyaluronic acid to remain lubricated and allow your muscles to glide smoothly over one another.
Okay, so fascia is like the biological saran wrap holding us together, and hyaluronic acid is the grease.
I love that. Exactly. Now, as we age and as we consume standard modern diets, we accumulate low-grade systemic inflammation.
Of the foods we eat.
Right. This inflammation alters the chemical environment of the fascia. The hyaluronic acid becomes thick, sticky, and highly viscous. It literally glues the tissues together.
Oh, yeah.
In Western medicine, we just call this getting older or morning stiffness.
Right. Everyone complains about their knees and their back as they age. We just accept it as normal wear and tear.
But from a biomechanical perspective, that stiffness is physical resistance. When Osman went on this hyper-nourishing zero-inflammation protocol, the massive influx of antioxidants and omega-3s systematically stripped away decades of microinflammation from his connective tissues.
So the glue melted.
Exactly. The viscosity of his fascia changed.
So we're essentially lubricating the biological gears from the inside out.
That's a great way to picture it.
Imagine a complex machine with thousands of interlocking gears. Over time, moisture gets in, a little rust builds up. The machine still works, but it takes a lot more effort to turn the crank. There is physical resistance.
Yeah.
The smoothie protocol acts like a powerful targeted solvent. It washes over every single gear, completely dissolving the rust. Suddenly you turn the crank and the energy just flows without any physical resistance at all.
That is a perfect translation of the mechanism. What the ancient yogis subjectively felt and called blocked life force, modern rheumatologists might identify as tissue inflammation and fascial adhesion.
Fascinating.
By completely clearing the systemic inflammation, Osman restored the mechanical glide of his tissues. Subjectively, to a master yogi, that feels like a massive surge of youthful prana and flexibility. It is a profound physical liberation.
He actually mentions that he had to be careful not to show off too much in front of his yoga students. He purposefully stuck to normal or slightly advanced postures because he didn't want to perform contortions that would create fear in his students or make them think these levels of flexibility were unattainable.
That's how drastically his body opened up.
And remember, he achieved this while battling cancer and recovering from neuropathy.
Which just speaks to the sheer, uncompromising power of the dietary intervention.
It really does. But this leads to a really fascinating contradiction in Osman's philosophy, which I find incredibly refreshing given the heavily polarized world of modern nutrition.
Oh, this is such a good point.
Because you would think, listening to Osman, a guy who has practiced yoga for 50 years, who achieved teenage-level flexibility on a raw vegan protocol, and who runs a bioenergy healing practice, you would think he is the most dogmatic, hardcore, militant vegan on the planet.
Right. The natural assumption is that someone in his position views all animal products as fundamentally toxic to the human spirit and body.
Exactly. But his take on the whole carnivore versus vegan debate is completely unexpected.
It really surprised me.
He actually cites professors from Stanford University and Harvard Medical School, and he notes Dr. Deepak Chopra's tenure at the University of California. Osman points out that, based on these leading scientists, he does not believe that carnivore diets or whole food omnivore diets, meaning diets containing high-quality meat, chicken, and fish, are inherently detrimental to the human body.
That is a remarkably open-minded and scientifically grounded stance for someone who just cured a severe neurological condition with raw cabbage.
Right. He explicitly says that according to the Ivy League scientists he follows, the problem is not whether you eat meat or plants.
No.
The real enemies, the true culprits destroying human health on a global scale, are refined and processed foods. Specifically, industrial vegetable oils, refined carbohydrates like commercial breads and pastas, and added sugars.
And medically, this aligns flawlessly with emerging metabolic research.
It does.
Yeah, it isn't the presence of high-quality, unprocessed animal protein that drives modern chronic disease. It is the absolute ubiquity of the hyper-processed, ultra-refined industrial food matrix.
The stuff in the middle aisles of the grocery store.
Exactly. We talked about seed oils earlier. When you fry foods in unstable oils, you create massive oxidative stress. When you strip the fiber from wheat to make white bread, you create foods that cause violent insulin spikes.
Right.
These processes create advanced glycation end products, or AGEs, which directly damage cellular proteins.
Osman's view is so incredibly practical. He essentially says, Look, if you have a serious condition, don't reinvent the wheel. Use Dr. Goldner's smoothie protocol as a targeted biological tool.
So, yes.
Sacrifice 2.5 years of your life to stick to it. Heal your body completely. And then, once you are fully healed and your cellular memory is reset, if you love your meat and chicken, slowly reintroduce whole foods, whether plant or animal-based, and observe how your body reacts.
It's very empirical.
He even notes he might start introducing those whole foods himself once he's fully healed and will report back to his audience.
It is the complete antithesis of dietary dogma. He views the extreme protocol not as a moral imperative or a religion, but as a specialized medical tool. You use the specific tool to fix the specific problem, and then you move on.
But he also shares some really pointed critiques about the modern medical system, specifically regarding how doctors are trained to use or ignore these tools.
This is a huge issue.
He points out that medical doctors spend over a decade studying pathology. They do 4 years of pre-med, 4 years of a medical degree, then residencies, internships, and specialization.
It's a grueling education.
It's a 13-plus-year education.
Yeah.
Yet they often receive only 2 to 7 hours of actual nutrition training in that entire time.
And this is a widely acknowledged structural issue in medical education, heavily influenced by the historical development of modern medicine, which prioritized pharmacology and acute surgical intervention over preventative lifestyle medicine.
Interesting.
Our medical system is unparalleled at acute care. If you are in a car crash, or you need trauma surgery, or you need a highly specific pharmaceutical to alter a failing biological pathway, you want a modern doctor.
Absolutely.
They are brilliant mechanics for severe bodily breakdowns, but they are rarely trained to be architects of long-term cellular health through nutrition.
Exactly. They know exactly which stent to put in if you have a heart attack, but they might not know how to prescribe a hyper-nourishing cruciferous diet to prevent the systemic inflammation that caused the arterial plaque to build up in the first place.
However, and Osman is exceptionally clear about this gap in nutritional training does not negate the absolute necessity of modern doctors.
No, not at all.
He emphasizes that ancient sciences, like traditional yoga, Ayurveda, and ancient natural therapies, are 1,500 to 4,500 years old.
They didn't have high-fructose corn syrup or commercial pesticides in 2500 BC.
Exactly. The ancient sages who developed these bioenergetic practices were not dealing with the bioaccumulation of microplastics or industrialized hydrogenated seed oils or the radioactive fallout from chemotherapy.
That's such a good point.
Ancient sciences simply do not account for modern 21st century toxicities, which is why Osman insists that modern board-certified medical supervision is non-negotiable. You cannot just meditate away a modern industrial illness without understanding the current biological landscape and utilizing modern diagnostics. You need a highly scientific approach.
I absolutely love this balanced approach. He is synthesizing the absolute best of both worlds. He's saying, take the 4,500-year-old wisdom of life force energy, combine it with a strictly modern, scientifically formulated protocol by a board-certified doctor like Dr. Goldner, and monitor the whole thing with current medical diagnostics.
It's a brilliant synthesis.
It really is. And this open-minded, incredibly scientific approach to ancient energy is exactly what he's bringing to his ultimate, deeply personal challenge.
The most profound and high-stakes part of his entire journey.
Yes. Osman is completely blind. He states that since May 2023, he has been permanently blind. And he means completely.
It's not just blurred vision.
No. He cannot distinguish daytime from nighttime. He cannot tell if a light is turned on in the room he is sitting in. He sees absolutely nothing.
And navigating the modern digital world with complete blindness presents an entirely unique set of daily frictions that sighted people rarely consider.
He talks about this in vivid detail. He navigates the world using an iPhone 16 Pro Max, relying heavily on Apple's voice-over accessibility software.
Right.
He says he can use about 90% of the phone's functionality like a normal person. But he shares these incredibly frustrating specific details about being locked out of modern life due to poor software design.
Like what?
For instance, banking apps. He has multiple bank accounts, and he literally cannot access some of them or add a beneficiary, because when he tries to verify his identity, the apps use complex dynamic security keyboards.
Oh, that makes sense. To explain why that happens, voice-over technology relies on the underlying code of an app having proper alt text and linear predictable structures so the screen reader can audibly describe what is on the screen.
Okay.
For security purposes, banking apps often scramble their keyboards or use graphical overlays to prevent keylogging software from stealing passwords.
Ah, I see.
But by making it secure against hackers, they make the interface entirely unreadable to accessibility algorithms. The technology just abandons him at the final security hurdle.
It is a stark, infuriating reminder of how much of our world is designed exclusively for the sighted,
Ugh,
often completely leaving behind those who rely on adaptive technology.
there's a huge barrier.
So his ultimate goal, the reason he's going back to this grueling, raw, green smoothie protocol for another 6 months, is hope. The hope of reversing his blindness. He mentions anecdotal reports he has heard of people reversing decades of blindness on Dr. Goldner's protocol. He specifically mentions a condition called retinitis pigmentosa, where people who couldn't see for 20 or 30 years were suddenly able to identify objects and see colors again, like seeing the green of the broccoli they were eating.
Retinitis pigmentosa is a severe genetic disorder that involves the progressive breakdown, apoptosis, and loss of photoreceptor cells in the retina.
The cells are dying off.
Yes. Now, if there are anecdotal reports of protocol patients regaining color vision, we have to look at the mechanism of oxidative stress in the macula.
Explain that.
The retina is incredibly vulnerable to oxidative damage. A massive systemic reduction in oxidative stress, combined with the extreme influx of cell-repairing omega-3s, might be altering the microenvironment of the eye enough to allow dormant or severely damaged retinal cells to partially regenerate or function more efficiently.
And Osman is incredibly grounded about his expectations. He isn't expecting perfect 20/20 vision to magically return. He just wants greater independence.
Which is completely understandable.
He says, if I can start seeing shadows and be able to identify objects, that would give me greater independence in my mobility.
Yeah.
He wants to be able to use his smartphone without fighting the voiceover software on his banking apps.
Right.
But he is not just relying on the smoothies to achieve this. He explicitly combines this extreme dietary protocol with his own master-level bioenergy healing.
And this is where we must navigate his claims very carefully, honoring his stated experience while maintaining the required objective skepticism of our analysis today.
Absolutely. So how does bioenergy healing factor into this?
Yeah.
Well, Osman claims an exceptionally high success rate with his bioenergy practice, which he notes specializes in critical care recoveries and terminal illnesses.
Okay.
He states he has treated roughly 20 to 30 cancer patients over the last 6 or 7 years with near 100% success.
Those are massive claims.
Yeah, he mentions about a dozen critical care recoveries, also 100% successful. In fact, he notes that he only lost one patient, and he attributes that tragic loss to his own energy levels being completely depleted because he was in the early stages of his master level and was trying to do critical care recovery for 3 people simultaneously.
I see.
He says he was just too far gone energetically, and the patient was too far gone physically. Now, he also claims his telepathic healing capabilities utilize quantum and entanglement principles. He says a 90% success rate isn't extraordinary. It's normal when you improve natural energy, which boosts immunity naturally.
Those are without a doubt medically staggering claims that sit entirely outside the current paradigm of peer-reviewed oncology.
Exactly. And as the host of this deep dive, I have to step in and clearly contextualize this for you listening. We're impartially reporting the statements and statistics Osman shares in his source material. We are not independently verifying these cancer cure rates, and we are emphatically not endorsing energy healing as an alternative to licensed oncology.
Yeah.
And importantly, Osman himself does not endorse it as an alternative.
His own strict disclaimer is that this is a complementary therapy.
Yes. He says never, ever abandon medical advice or medication without your doctor's supervision. Even if you try the smoothie protocol, he says, make sure your doctor is heavily monitoring your progress or potential deterioration.
Which is the crucial ethical safety net here. But if we synthesize Osman's entire worldview, putting aside clinical verification of the energy work for a moment, we see a man who is utilizing absolutely every possible vector for healing.
He is not leaving a single stone unturned.
He really isn't. He is utilizing the most modern accessibility tech, the iPhone 16 Pro Max, to fight for his independence in a digital world. He is literally trying to heal his biology from the ground up, fighting a multi-front war against systemic illness.
And his dedication is just awe-inspiring. He talks about how his energy healing levels are at their highest stage now, a decade later, and he is incrementally increasing his own practice on a daily basis.
That takes so much commitment.
He says the Brooke GOLDNER protocol works perfectly in tandem with these intrinsic energy levels. It's an A-plus combination in his book, but he constantly grounds the listener. Don't have unrealistic expectations up front.
Right, it's not a magic trick.
Exactly. Expect it to take 3 to 6 months to see massive physical changes. Surprise yourself if it happens in 2 weeks, but prepare your mind for the long haul.
And that long haul, that unyielding endurance, is the true overarching takeaway from Osman's incredible journey.
It really is. As we wrap up this deep dive, let's just recap the sheer scope of what we've unpacked today. We started with the intense physiological mechanics of a 90-day hyper-nourishing green smoothie protocol, literally blending raw cruciferous vegetables to activate genetic antioxidant pathways and jumpstart a chemo-depleted immune system.
Such a powerful mechanism.
We explored the paradoxical science of visceral fat and how dropping insulin levels melted away dangerous inflammation-producing tissue faster than 2 hours of daily gym sessions.
The visceral versus subcutaneous distinction is so key there.
Totally. We looked at the shocking fragility of symptom reversal through the lens of epigenetic memory and the brutal reality of the 2-year rule required for total cellular turnover.
The ultimate test of willpower.
We connected the dots between systemic inflammation, hyaluronic acid, and the ancient yoga science of flexibility. And we saw a completely blind energy healer bridging the gap between Harvard medical science and ancient wisdom, ultimately embarking on a quest to reclaim his eyesight through sheer discipline.
You know, Osman's story fundamentally challenges a core aspect of our modern culture. We live in an era of the quick fix.
Oh, without a doubt.
We want a pharmaceutical pill that cures the pain by tomorrow morning. We want a 10-day juice cleanse that magically undoes a decade of poor nutritional choices.
Yeah, we want the easy way out.
But Osman's reality is entirely different. It requires a fundamental, agonizing shift in how you interact with the food matrix and the world around you.
It's the ultimate test of human endurance.
So I want to leave you with this final provocative thought to mull over today. Think about your own health, your own lingering aches, your brain fog, or even your profound illnesses.
Yeah.
If you knew with absolute biological certainty that completely transforming your health and potentially reversing your most stubborn condition required not just a simple pill, but 2.5 years of absolute, uncompromising, socially isolating dedication to a radically different way of eating, would you have the profound mental fortitude to take that very first sip?